how is your day going aside from, doing interviews, fake news, that kind of stuff?
It's good. I'm feeling good. Good weather. Got a haircut. Got a little food in my belly. I can't complain. How are you?
Nonstop but good. Pleasure to be speaking with you. You got a new special through Comedy Dynamics, not your first special. So how long was this one in the works for in terms of writing, prepping the material, and negotiating the deal?
Good question. Probably about a year and a half, and I would say, when the last one came through a couple years ago, I kind of already had built up, probably about 15, 20 minutes of the new material on the special here. I'm a professional, and so with talking with the team over at Rhizome and all that jazz, I just began to just kind of keep working and fine tuning it here in Atlanta and around the country. And then when I felt good about it, when I was like, hey, I think let's find a date for the future. We locked it
Hmm.
in, got the team together, recorded it, and then, boom, it came out a few weeks ago. And so, yeah, I would say about 18 months, give or take.
So as you pointed out, it was made in Atlanta. When I was a kid, pretty much every stand-up special was New York, LA, San Francisco. Nowadays, Atlanta has more movies, TV shows, stand-up things, etc. happening. When did you kind of realize that you could be in that part of the country, or in general, you didn't have to be in LA to do stand-up?
Yeah, yeah. I moved to Atlanta in 2009. And so that was before kind of that Southeast Hollywood boom per se to a degree.
Hmm.
But I think for that second part of the question was when I started comedy in 2010, we were still kind of on the back end of, yo, you probably got to move to LA, you probably got to move to New York to really grow. And as social media changed and the internet continued to expand and online creators continue to kind of blossom and pop off. Shout out to the great Dusty Slay in Nashville. It was like, oh wait, this industry is kind of changing, and it probably was when I was able to go full time in 2016, primarily with working on at colleges and on cruise ships. I was like, oh, I can do what I love to do, travel, take care of my family, but still be here based in Atlanta without having to move and still
Hmm.
be a success. So a win is a win, as they say.
So years before that, the whole touring China thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, almost 15 years ago. What was your material like back then?
Mm, back then I was definitely much younger in the game as a comedian, so it was much more just observational. Just talking a little bit about me being a young father. It had much more content around me. I was also teaching full time while trying to do comedy full time, so I had many more observational bits about that. Pretty. It didn't really kind of dive deep into the storytelling, which I feel like is something that it's heard a little bit on the first album, and then definitely more so
Hmm.
on this second special here. But yeah, it really one of the things about that aspect was specifically as well was that one of my main goals was trying to write content that was going to be evergreen, that was going to be universal, right? Where I could, as China showcased me, how can my act travel? And that's something I'm definitely grateful for.
So a lot of comics that I speak with, when they do the special, that means they're retiring the material. And then others
Mm.
go, well, no, I'll still do the 5 minutes from it as the closer. For you, is I'm a professional coming out a retirement of the material?
Not really. I definitely think that as I'm trying to get ready for this new hour,
Hmm.
there's more times than not, you're not really gonna hear it if you come see me. But depending on the circumstance, as I'm not a household name at the moment here, a lot of people still haven't heard those jokes. A lot of people still haven't heard, that material that took time to craft. And so, depending on where I am, I don't do definitely don't do pretty much here in Atlanta. I definitely bring out a bit or two that I enjoy doing, and that matters to me. There's still some bits, some stories I love telling, so I'm still going to tell it.
So, being an Atlanta comic, you've opened for one of my favorite comics of all time, and that is George Wallace. Now,
Mm,
Mr. Wallace or Henry, depending on how well you know him, that kind of a situation.
mhm,
When you're opening for him, what kind of material do you do? Do you have to skew older, or do you have to do the
mm.
exact opposite of what he does?
Great question. That was one of my favorite days in my career for sure. It was at the closed down Atlanta Improv years ago. My in-laws were actually in town and all this, and it was just a two-person show. It was just me opening up, and then he came out. Side note, really quick. The crazy thing about that is that I tell a story. I get off stage. I tell a story about China. I get off the stage. He brings me back on stage, and then proceeds for the next 5 minutes to roast me in front of my in-laws and a crowd sold out. And so that was a humbling yet exciting moment. But in general, he just said, "Do you?" And I appreciated that. So I did my material, and again, it went over well. We had a good time. It was a sold out room at the Improv, and yeah, it was a true delight and a pleasure to work with a legend.
Do you like doing clubs? It sounds like a loaded question, but
Mm.
some comics love it because it has energy and you're actually in the faces of the crowd, and other people, they're just doing it until they can get up to the theater level.
Right, right, right. I love clubs. I've been fortunate enough to do a few theaters myself, and I've been in a lot of different spaces. But if I was choosing one space that I would never want to let go, it would definitely be the comedy club. There's an intimacy to it. There's a different type of energy that, in
Hmm.
my opinion, a theater or corporate event or a ship or college or whatever else you could think of just can't really duplicate. Especially depending on the spacing and the low ceilings in the dark room, and it's a
Hmm.
Friday night, it's 10:45 p.m. and there's just something electric about it that I think for our art form is something that I don't take for granted. So as long as the clubs that have me, I'm gonna keep bringing the heat every time.
Wow. So you've mentioned a lot of different settings already. In organic conversation, you said cruise ship,
Mm.
China,
Mhm.
corporate. We talked about clubs, you talked about theaters. Does that mean that if somebody books you and they go, you got 25 minutes and it has to be clean, you could do
Mm.
that? And somebody goes, 45 minutes, blue show. Are you kind of prepared at this point? Because it sounds like you are.
I humbly think I am. I think that with all of my experience so far, and I've only, it'll be October, it'll be 15 years, but I've
Hmm.
done so many different environments and settings, from emceeing events to doing birthday parties to a corporate event to doing different things around the globe, where and I'm able to really kind of look at the room, read the room, see what they're asking for, and still bring it. And that's another shout out to China. When I got to China, I quickly had to learn that, oh wait, these people are from 12 different countries. Their first language isn't necessarily English. The cultural references aren't going to hit the same way. So how am I writing on a human level? How can I take this and literally have some type of relatability that hits pretty much any context? And so
Hmm.
I don't take that for granted, because that was something that now, years later, as a better writer, as a better performer, etc., I'm able to now utilize in any context I'm thrown in.
So there's all those stand-up dates. There's this new special. There's the podcast Fourth and Ten. There's the YouTube channel, etc. It sounds like having the three kids and stand-up and all those projects that there is nothing else in your life.
It's a pretty full life, I'll tell you that for sure. And I,
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted, man. I'm grateful to have the life I live as a husband and a father, chasing my dreams of being a comedian here. But yeah, if I'm at home, I'm definitely enjoying some relaxation, that's for sure.
Well, where I'm going with all that is you see a lot of comics who don't really love the stand-up. They're using that more so as the springboard
Mm,
so they can produce stuff. I don't get the producer vibes. I get the I'm a comic. I like doing comedy when I can. And when I don't
mm.
have to do it, I'm going to be at home. Those are the vibes I get from you rather than the, Damon Sumner presents banner coming for decades to come.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. I love what I do, man. I think I came across it, without getting too much into the origin story, just kind of like by accident. Someone
Yeah.
asked me, I didn't grow up. A lot of times you hear comedians talk about their story, if they're my age, potentially older, like their mom and dad maybe had prior records or Carlin was on, or they always were watching late night. That was not my world at all. And so I didn't really know stand up really at all until I got to college, and then blah blah blah. I moved to Atlanta. A friend's like, "Man, you're really funny. Have you ever thought about stand up?" No, I hadn't. I signed up with one of my best friends, a great comic here in Atlanta, David Perdue. We performed 2010, and literally the rest is history. So this is what I love to do, and it's something that, regardless if opportunities come that I take, stand up isn't going anywhere.
So going to college in the early 2000s, my college got a right before he made it Chappelle, a right before
Mm,
he made it Dane Cook.
Hmm.
We had this weird show that was like Jeff Ross, Stephen Lynch, Jim Norton, and it drew 20 people. We got good comics right before they made it, being
Hmm.
on Long Island, New York. Did you
Hmm.
go to any of the comedy shows when you were in college?
I didn't. That's what's crazy. I didn't. This art form was the furthest thing from my mind. I always appreciated making people laugh. That was something that was my first love
Sure.
before sports, before, I got a degree in sports journalism, blah, blah, blah. But
Hmm.
making people laugh, bringing people joy, laughing in the cafeteria table, outside at recess, etc., on the school bus, that was my real joy. So that was always there. But the art form, oh yeah, no. So when they had a comedian come to our college, I was like, I think I'm good. I think I'll stay in and get some pizza and watch some old episodes of The Office.
So you're one of the comedians that likes sports. I put it that way because you find out that every comic loves sports or hates sports because they got bullied by the athletes and therefore they want nothing to do with
Mm.
sports. Do you foresee yourself in the future ever trying to do the correspondent kind of thing, given your degree and your background?
I would love to. That would be something I thought a little about. With the podcast Fourth and Ten, sports always been part of my life. I guess the Lord works in mysterious ways because He was like, "Hey, you're gonna do comedy. I know you want to be a running back, but you're only gonna be 5'6", so we got to change courses." And I'm not mad at that.
Well, as your material said, middle school running back. So there you go. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
two more questions topics, then I
Yes, sir.
let you go. And the first one is the last name Sumner. That
Mm.
happens to be the last name of Sting and his son Joe Sumner, who does really well.
Mm.
The first name of the former Viacom head and all that. Does having that last name Sumner ever help you in any way? Did it get your foot in the door in any way into the business?
Absolutely not. Easy question.
So no Sting opportunities, no accidentally
None.
Sting's mail coming to you.
Zero.
Fair. Okay. And then the next thing is we talked about at the beginning about how you are working on your next hour. Where does the next year, year and a half look for you career wise? Or
Mm.
have you learned to just kind of let things fall into place?
Hmm. Yeah. Really the next 12, 18 months, year and a half, I'm really trying to do more touring on
Hmm.
land. That's one of my main goals here. The base is kind of, been building slowly. And so kind of on land with clubs, trying to kind of build that up independently right now,
Hmm.
self-represented. And then I'm excited for this next hour here. I think I'm trying to continue to fine tune a few different muscles. I've got a lot more storytelling that I want to kind of lean into and kind of branch that out and keep playing around with things, get into some markets I haven't been in before. And then one of my big goals in 2026, see if it can happen, is I'm loving to optimistically do some runs in Asia and in Europe. So there's some big plans, and we keep on working. I think good things will happen.
Wow. Following up to that, when you say markets you haven't been to before, that's primarily Asia and Europe, or you tell me, well, I've never done Colorado and it's, that kind of a thing.
Right, right. It's both that. I really want to get to Seattle, Portland area, San Francisco, Vegas are three scenes in the country. But yeah, I haven't played anything in Europe. I did a few, of course, out in Asia. And if somebody's willing to pay for my flights, I'll go to Australia too.
Nice. Well, the bottom line is you got the new special. Congrats on that. More material coming, the podcast, the YouTube series. Really looking forward to what's to come from you. And thanks for the great comedy, Damon.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Paltrocast.